Joining me this morning, my guest from Farmington Municipal Schools, Superintendent Dr. Eugene Schmidt is joining us. He is out of the office this morning, and he is joining us on the phone. Dr. Schmidt, good morning. Great to have you with us, of course.
Good morning, Scott, and good morning to the Four Corners.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll learn more about your whereabouts in just a moment, but I want to introduce our other guests who are with us this morning. Andrea Garcia is here. She is the principal of the East and West Farmington Preschool Academy. Good morning to you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you.
And also joining us here in the studio is the assistant principal of the Farmington East and West Preschool Academy, Tanisha Edwards. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in as well. Great to have both of you here. And Dr. Schmidt, let me come back to you a little bit. And you are in the Pacific Northwest as you're speaking to us this morning, correct?
Yes, and thank you for that. I'm excited to share with the community that the transition to acting superintendent Cody Deal is well underway. And while I still have 6 weeks of time on my contract, for which I'll be busy working for the Farmington Municipal Schools, I joined the radio this morning just because I'm such a fan of Principal Garcia and Assistant Principal Edwards and the work that they are doing for early childhood education. So I'm going to be very deliberate and say that, you know, these ladies really care for kids, and they just run an amazing program. We'll get them to join in a minute, but I'm excited to share with the community, Scott, that one of the actions that I still have left in these 6 weeks will be to go to Santa Fe with Principal Garcia and Assistant Principal Edwards to make an ask for funding to build a new early childhood education facility. So, Andrew, you might want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll come back on.
Very good. All right. We will do that. Dr. Schmidt, thank you very much. Stand by. And Principal Garcia, talk to me a little bit about what Dr. Schmidt was suggesting. There's some money might be available for this project.
Yes, thank you for that opportunity. Right now, the state of New Mexico has really placed a strong emphasis on early childhood. And in fact, on the news this morning, Secretary Elizabeth Gruginski, who is the Secretary of the Early Childhood Division of the state.
A brand new department, I might add, right?
Brand new department. It's 2 years old, and there's such a focus on meeting the needs of families and the children before they go to kindergarten at age 5. In our minds, we're thinking of the shift is not kindergarten, or school doesn't start at kindergarten, it starts earlier. Public school can start at 3 years old now, not 5 years old. And so right now there also happens to be an abundance of funding. I'm surprised that I've ever been able to say that.
Right.
And so there are grants and funding available through the PSCOC, and our fantastic Plant Operations Department has put in an application, and we are, as Dr. Schmidt said, we are headed to Santa Fe to present that, and hopefully we will get the news back at the end of the summer that we will have the funding and the opportunity to build that. We have had these plans a few times over the years. I've been at the preschools. This is my 18th year. And we've wanted a new building. We've wanted one all-inclusive building. It's better for the collaborations of the staff and for the kids to have all of those services together. It's just a way more efficient and great opportunity for us to be all in one place. So that's hopefully going to be happening in the near future.
Gotcha. Interesting and exciting, I guess. And again, the funding situation in our state is quite exciting to talk about, because this isn't not something we've been able to talk about in these terms for a few years, to have money to maybe pay for some of these exciting and forward-thinking concepts, which I think is what we're talking about.
Correct. And what it would be is the one site would be where the Farmington Preschool Academy East facility is now. It's next door to Country Club, and it will be a 2-story building. And so we will be able to serve all the families and all the students in that one 2-story site.
Got you. That's the plan.
Yes.
Okay. Very, very good. At the moment, we have 2 sites, which is why we have Farmington Preschool Academy East and West. And so this would consolidate both of them.
Yes, the two programs. The campus at East serves students ages 3 to 5 who have a documented disability and a need for specialized services. There are some typically developing students there in our peer program so that the students with disabilities can be taught alongside the children who have typically developing language and cognition skills. And then our other site at the West Campus is a one-year program for students just 4 years old who are just to go to kindergarten. Right before that, it's 1 year. And more typically developing students, and there are some students with disabilities there as well.
Got it. Thank you very much. Dr. Schmidt, let me come back to you a little bit about this conversation at the state level of, having an early childhood department level in our state, and a secretary, of course, who was advocating all of these things and talking to the legislature and the governor, and then having this funding available for some of these projects that I know you all have probably been talking about at the Farmington school level for a number of years. What does this say to you as superintendent that the state is kind of putting so much effort into this program and funding?
It really is exciting because the research, when you have access to early learning, the likelihood that you'll be at reading level by grade 3 is really important. And, sadly, the research shows if you don't reach the ability to read by 3rd grade, there's a greater chance that you may never catch up. So I'm really proud of Andrea and Tanisha for their advocacy to say we can do more for early childhood. But I also want to give a shout, and certainly Principal Garcia, Assistant Principal Edwards, nothing works in isolation. So we have a great partnership with Barb Tedrow, who runs the Gold Star Academies and represents a lot of the private pay programs in town, but she is on Secretary Groginski's cabinet as an advisory member, and a lot of the attention I think that Four Corners is getting is thanks to the work of the voice of Barb Tedrow. So, Andrea, I'll let you jump in just for a second, and then, Scott, I want to get back into, as quickly as we can get Tanisha and Andrea out of Academy West, we have plans for that building. So, Andrea, just maybe share a thought or two about the work that we do with collaboratively with Barb Tedrow.
So, thank you for that opportunity. We are really proud of ourselves, actually, for the collaborations that we have in the Four Corners. Tanisha and I are on several committees, early childhood committees, children onward committees, and we work with private organizations, such as the ones that Barb is owner of. We work with Head Start. We work with the hospital, preschools, everybody that has the need to work with children, we have collaborations with. I work with the Early Intervention Birth to 3 program for those students coming in on their 3rd birthday. And so it's really working with the families, what they need, birth to 5. And that's what the Early Childhood and Care Department, the ECECD department, is about. We were able to meet with Secretary Groginski. She's making statewide visits right now, and she came up to the Four Corners, and we were able to meet with her, even though we're all very different. If you have CYFD programs, if you have private programs, Head Start programs, and public school programs, there's a lot of differences, but there's really a lot of similarities. And it's really, truly just working together to meet the needs of the community and making sure that the families get the services they need, and working with those birth to 5 kiddos.
Right. Very, very good. And let me ask you, too, a little bit about, and Assistant Principal Edwards, let me ask you this question, about the growth of this conversation in our state, in New Mexico. It seems like a lot of attention, like I said, is being given to early childhood education and offering more options, I think, for parents, right, to get their kids into a place that can help them and make those achievements by 3rd grade, things along that line. How important is that to have this discussion in a state like ours, which is pretty rural and pretty spread out? And so it's, not every family has these opportunities that are being now spread out, I think, to even more of the smaller communities in our state. It's got to be maybe a life-changing thing for some of these kids.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what one of the things that makes our area great is the collaboration that's happening with all these agencies and programs. And like Principal Garcia was saying, we're part of several community committees and coalitions that are looking to bridge and network all of these resources that we have happening in our community so that families have access to all kinds of things, and looking beyond looking at several layers of getting access to that community, not only looking at access to childcare and school facilities, but also, looking at problems such as transportation, food, those things, and families having access to those type of basic needs. So there's all kinds of collaboration and support going on right now to improve those systems and to get those resources out to families to share.
Right, and that really does talk about how wide-ranging our schools are in the needs of children and families, that it's not maybe just classroom learning and 8 to 3 and things along that line. It goes well beyond maybe the school day that we think about of lunches and now breakfasts and now maybe other things that the family would need. And so it's really important to hear about that. Go ahead.
One of the things, too, that there's a strong emphasis now on is the social and emotional care for families and the students. That mental health care right now is a real focus of all of our groups, and we want to make sure that the families are able to access those. We're also looking at full day and half day programs and before and after school care, all of those opportunities. That's why we're excited, too, about getting our new facility, because we want to be able to open it up to full day, open it up to more 3-year-old programs, so families have those options at every level of the education of their kids.
Right. Dr. Schmidt, I'm going to come back to you a little bit. You mentioned, of course, that the East Academy is at Country Club Elementary, and West is at the Kate Center, I believe. And so, if this new facility is funded, that would leave some space at the Kate Center. But as I'm not surprised, you have plans for that.
Yes, and I want to thank Principal Garcia and Assistant Principal Edwards, because they helped shape a vision for the future that I think is really compelling. You may remember how much fun, Scott, we had 5 years ago talking about, so what if we collaborated with San Juan College and bought the 30th Street Education Center and actually centralize activities that are taking place all over town? So this is the model that Principal Garcia is challenging us with, and how do we centralize service to add efficiency, effectiveness? It's that one-stop shop for early childhood education. So I'm really excited about the vision that Andrea and Tanisha are setting for us and the challenge that they're giving, saying we can do this even better and provide more space for kids, add to our enrollment, which has the immediate impact of reshaping the future of New Mexico by having well-educated early childhood kids. So park that for a moment. The Kate Center has long been, I will say, coveted by my thought process in trying to expand career technical options for high school kids. So if this thing comes to fruition and we, in 2 or 3 years, have a new early childhood education center, it allows us to also create a new career expanded pathways for high school kids. So the community, Scott, would be interested in knowing. That's why I'll be in Washington, D.C. next week, where I'm taking a delegation of Farmington staff and some Four Corners people to Washington, D.C. to meet with the Gates Foundation to explore what might high school redesign look like if you want to set up a career and technical education expanded program. So envision for a moment the Kate Welding Center, and Anna Wilson is an amazing instructor. We're adding a second welding and a second auto shop to go from 60 kids to 120 kids just in the welding day. And so imagine if it were possible to keep kids at the Kate Center for an extended period of time and maybe do business English or some kind of welding math or construction trades math. So we're wondering aloud, how might we connect with kids better to put them on a career path And at the same time, Scott, how many times we've talked about how can I get the graduation rate better?
Right.
And if I can connect with the kids that maybe don't understand or see a purpose for high school in an expanded career technical center, that might be a way to help kids for their futures.
Makes sense to me, Dr. Schmidt, and so I'm not surprised that you've given that some thought, and that is kind of the goal of these kind of conversations as we talk about a new building and moving some spaces around and things along that line. So that's kind of fitting with what we've been talking about for these many years of trying to get those graduation rates up and trying to encourage those kids who just are struggling in school and high school to finish and walk across that stage. It's been graduation season, so we're celebrating a lot with your seniors and your students as they go across the stage, Dr. Schmidt, and so it's exciting to be thinking about how to get more of them to get to that milestone in their lives. So thank you for that, and good luck in DC. Let me ask you both that are here too in the studio with me a bit about this. Again, the state's push for early childhood education and these opportunities, and I think we're hearing even from some of the other superintendents in town about during COVID, some of the kids in the younger grades may have suffered a little bit more, some subsets of those grades, and they're really concerned about that third grade mark, right? That if the reading skills aren't there by third grade, there are study after study after study that just say it's really hard to get those things back, and maybe earlier intervention can be helpful in this regard. Principal Garcia?
Oh, absolutely. And we were just looking at some information with our curriculum department about English language arts, and we're talking about the difference between acceleration and remediation. And so right now, we need to accelerate their learning. The idea that students need access to their grade level, or in our case, their developmental, their age level learning and what's expected at that age, that's really important. Accelerating their learning, not keeping them back where they are and going from there. We need to make sure that they are on the path to catch up instead of stay back where they are and slowly learn and slowly catch up. They miss a lot of learning in the process that way.
Right.
So.
Got you. Assistant Principal Edwards, kind of same question to you. I mean, is that something that parents can kind of be working towards, even if they're not in a preschool, but they could certainly be reading to kids and doing other things for their youngsters?
Absolutely. Like you said, reading is a huge thing, being read aloud to, letting your child pretend to read back to you. Those are huge, big jumps you can do. It's the easiest you can do. The library, Farmington Public Library, has a great summer reading program if you need access to books as well. So reading to your child, talking to your child, communication, language is so important, and continuing to use adult language and grammar and introducing them to bigger words and longer words and building that vocabulary with children is so important, and it helps them when they're in school academically and towards the future. Also, have fun this summer, you guys. Play with your kiddos. Teaching your kids to play in games is a great social emotional skill. It teaches them how to take turns, how to be a how to be a good winner and how to be a good loser, because sometimes they're not always going to win. So having those social skills of having to play a game and take your wins and losses as they come is another great thing parents can do with their kids over the summer. And now that we're back together, taking part in community events such as going to the pool, going to the park if you're comfortable, and letting them be around their peers and get that socialization and how to interact with other people is just another thing. So all of those are great things that families can do over the summer, and even if they're not in a preschool or child care program, just continue to do those things with your children.
Great advice, and that brings up another topic for me a little bit about that socialization, because coming out of 2 years of pandemic and maybe staying away from crowds or other people, and for these very young children, that's part of their development, right? At those ages is learning kind of how to get along with other kids and sharing and all those things that we learn about. Some of us learn more than others, I think, a little better to do that. But these are important skills that these children may have missed out on over the last couple of years. no fault of their own, but just because of what we've been under, right?
And that's correct. And we are, sadly, our enrollment has been down these last 2 years, but we just are so welcoming this opportunity to give a shout out to the community that we are open. We've been open, but we understand that some families just aren't comfortable with that level of getting back into public yet. But we've always had our COVID safe practices and the health concerns and the cleaning. We really have a great school system that has provided those resources for us. So hopefully the community is ready to come back. We're ready to take everybody. Next year we would love to have bursting classrooms. I know our teachers are so ready to have more kids, and we know that it really is best for them to be able to start out their learning and build that foundation before they hit into kindergarten. One other thing I wanted to give a shout to right now is that our preschool teachers and EAs have the opportunity to advance their education while they're working. We believe in grow your own. Farmington community is all about that as well. And at the preschool level specifically, we have a lot of scholarships available for our educational assistants who want to work toward becoming teachers, and we have several of those doing that right now. We have alternative licensure plans, so if you have a degree in business or in psychology, you can come and work while you're getting paid through a scholarship to take classes. We even developed several years ago a lending library at the preschool. So the classes, the early childhood classes that you take, if you want to use that lending library and we have the books for you, you won't have to have that cost either. So we're really trying to form those partnerships and provide all the opportunities because we know people are so busy. What can we do to help them become the educators?
Right. A lot of opportunities for folks who want to become teachers or want to get into the field of education, I think, at this moment in time. Both local, state, and federal opportunities as well. I think money is coming in to help pay for some of these things that you're talking about.
Yes. Well, and with the salary increases, there's no better time. This is just such a celebration that the state is recognizing the importance of the educators, and they got fantastic raises. And we can only say thank you, and it's just great for them to be able to have that monetary recognition. They get the other, but it's always good that they're now up with the nationwide level of salaries, and we're very proud of that.
Right. Dr. Schmidt, let me bring you back into the conversation a little bit about maybe the talking about getting more people into the field of education, more of these folks maybe who have bachelor's degrees, maybe in business or psychology or things like that, to go in and get that alternative licensure and get them to join the ranks of the educators at Farmington schools and elsewhere. There are shortages, aren't there, across our state?
Yes, and so I'll answer that in two parts, and because I want to acknowledge your efforts in helping to try and promote education as a future. Certainly, we would want our Four Corners community to know that if you have an interest in working with Farmington Municipal Schools, we can find a place. We're always anxious for second career opportunities to think about how you can give back to your community and your country serving as a teacher. So, give Mr. Pash a call. We can get you set up, and we have a place. There's plenty of different opportunities. But Scott, I also want to give a shout out to you because one of the favorite parts of the graduation year is you get to do announcements of names, and I know we thank you for San Juan College High School, Piedra Vista. How you can roll through hundreds of names and get everyone's name correct. Many of those kids are going to go into education as their future. So you, through your announcing of names, which is, I think, something of an iconic thing for you and our community, is much appreciated.
Well, it's always a pleasure for me to be asked, and happy to be a part of those ceremonies, Dr. Schmidt. And for the kids, it's a great moment for them and their families. So it's important to get it right. So thank you for that. But I really appreciate it. I only feel old when I'm told and reminded that I've been the only graduation announcer for Piedra Vista since the building opened. And that's the only time I feel old. when someone mentions that, but that's it. But you didn't, and I did, so that's all right. But thank you for that very, very much. Just a couple of minutes remaining this morning, everyone, as we talk about early childhood education in our state and across New Mexico, and so this has to be very exciting. And again, Assistant Principal Edwards, go ahead.
I was just wanting to piggyback on that conversation about graduation.
Yes.
And a few of the studies that are starting to come out have shown that students who are enrolled in a pre-K program are more likely to graduate high school. And so, like Principal Garcia was saying, starting school does not start at kindergarten, it starts at pre-K or earlier. And so the sooner that families have access to those early intervention services or preschool schooling, the more likely those kiddos are going to graduate from high school, and the more likely they are to go on to a trade or a college setting. So the work that we're doing at the preschool, and our teachers are amazing, they're wonderful, they love the kids. So the works that our teachers are doing there are really laying the foundation to get these kids from 4-year-olds all the way to graduation and beyond, and make them wonderful, productive citizens of our community. And hopefully they can come back and give back. And that's what we're here to do, is to give them that great start towards their wonderful futures that they have ahead.
Thank you for adding that. I think that's important. And I wanted to ask you both a little bit your thoughts on this question. For folks who maybe say, but you know, my grandparents didn't go to preschool and my parents didn't go to preschool. I'm not sure why my child has to go to preschool, but is it part of our changing society and changing lifestyles and things like that why we see these students performing better when they have done some time with the preschool teacher and learning some of these concepts even before kindergarten?
Yes.
That's right. And times have changed. When our grandparents were going to school, they started at age 5, but in older days and in previous times, families didn't have everyone out in the workplace. And so they
both
often
mother and father,
both mother and
parents, or whatever
father,
the
and
case may be.
they often had someone taking care of them at home. And so they didn't see a need to have that formalized education opportunity. And so our world has gotten busier, everyone's gotten crazy, a lot of families, everyone's working. And so we also see that what is expected of children going into kindergarten has increased in the last couple decades. It's really more important now that they have some foundational skills. It starts them off on a better footing once they reach kindergarten. And we recognize that some families who do choose to stay home have that great learning opportunity with their kids, and they do that. We just want to make sure everybody has the chance to come to the programs if they want that. You know, there's so many families that both parents are out working and they need somewhere safe and good to put their kids. And so we want to provide that for them, as well as getting them all of those increased expectations now. And it's always a good thing to expect more from your kids. So we welcome that opportunity, but they sure have more that they get when they first go into kindergarten now.
The rigor of academics has changed since we were in school, even myself. But, you know, the expectations at kindergarten have definitely changed. And the rigor and our district curriculum department is doing a great job of putting together vocabulary that they want kindergartners to use. And I was reviewing that list, and those words, I was kind of like, I would have never known those in kindergarten.
Right.
So definitely Farmington School District has done a great job of having such academic rigor to prepare students for college and beyond. And we also want to prepare our preschoolers for that rigor when they come in. So we would like to allow the families that opportunity to come and get exposure to that before jumping into kindergarten.
Gotcha. Very, very good. Well, thank you both for coming in this morning to talk about the work that you do at Farmington East and West Preschool Academy. And good luck with the next ask and request in Santa Fe, and we hope to celebrate maybe the announcement of the construction starting not too very far from now. So thank you, and good luck to you. Dr. Schmidt, let me come back to you for our final thoughts this morning, and good luck to you, of course, on your trip as well. Dr. Schmidt, can you still hear me?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes.
I was going to share that I'm really excited about the future of early childhood education, and would be fun to do one more radio show in June to say So here's what happened in Santa Fe, here's what happened in DC, and here's what the future of our kids will look like. So would love to coordinate one more call-in show because these 7 years have been so enjoyable.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, Dr. Schmidt, because I didn't want to leave you literally off the hook here to have this be our last show together. So we can track you down wherever you are in June. So don't worry about that. We will find you and get you on the show. How's that?
Okay, with that, I'll let you go and I will sign off.
All right, very good. Dr. Eugene Schmidt, Superintendent of Schools from the Farmington School District, joining me, of course, this morning on KSJE, as well as our other guests, the principal and assistant principal of the Farmington East and West Preschool Academies. Thank you both very much for being here in the studio with me, and appreciate you being here. Thank you. My guests here on KSJE.